Hello, hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to another episode of Teach Gen Tech. And we are currently working on, I feel like I always need to do this when I talk about it, of Learning TypeScript with Josh.
Hi.
It's very exciting. And I have, that was confusing. I was going in Inception mode. I had YouTube, up just in case I needed something there. And I was like, I'm hearing myself talk. This is really weird.
It's weird.
It is very weird and very distracting. Yet, hello. For those who are new to joining us, welcome. Josh wrote a really cool book that I was trying to show you of Learning TypeScript.
Yay.
What? I feel like I almost want to ask at the very beginning of every time we meet of like, how would you describe TypeScript?
Ooh. The answer is going to change every time as I learn and grow like a human. I'd say TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, meaning that's the technical term. The human term is TypeScript is like JavaScript, but it adds a lot of really useful features that let you describe what your code is supposed to do, which means it can both help you write code and also let you know when you're messing up.
I like it. And you just reminded me that at some point I want to write a blog or do a video of like, what is a meta framework, a framework, a superset, and then a compiler? Because I'm like, all of those terms, like I'm still like, okay, cool. I kind of mostly know what I'm doing, like talking about. But like at the same time, I'm like, yeah, no, I gotta look all of this up.
Let's add transpilers, linters, formatters, language services. There's just a bajillion terms that people throw around, and they all have reasonable meanings. It's not like any of these are like real rocket science, but like on their own, you gotta learn them. You gotta understand where they come from. You have to do that 3 or 4 more times until it really sinks in. But if you're me or many people, it's just stuff to learn.
That is a great call out too. The way I understand linter is it's something that will tell you, it's kind of like prettier in VS Code in the fact that it tells you if you have something that's incorrect or not a specific format that is a defined rule. So would TypeScript be a linter?
You've activated my trap card, as they say. So there are three tools that roughly fit into the description you said, and you are right. They look at your code and they let you know if something is wrong, and they all kind of blends together. A formatter is the simplest of them. A formatter just looks at the stuff that doesn't change the meaning of your code: white space, tabs, spaces, end lines, semicolons. All that stuff should not change how your code runs, and a formatter just helps you write the code that's pretty and consistent. Hence the name prettier. So yeah, in VS Code, a lot of people do what I do, which is they make it so that prettier runs on save. Whenever I hit save, it formats the file. And if I hit save and the file doesn't format, I know I've messed up my syntax somewhere, which is actually really useful when you're learning a language.
Yeah.
The next step is linters. Linters operate with a large set of rules. Things like don't have an unused variable, don't name things in all caps or whatever. You can get some pretty advanced lint rules, especially when you have like custom things that people write for their own projects. Linters should not work on formatting because the formatters do that. Linters aren't going to do it as well. They're slower, they're more powerful, so they're not as good at the like edge cases of formatting. But they are really nice and configurable because in most linters you can toggle rules on or off, change their severities. A lot of rules have options. Like you could allow unused variables that match a specific name or whatever. So that's linters. So I'll pause there because that's like a big point of contention and confusion in at least the JavaScript TypeScript community of use prettier for formatting and ESLint for linting. And a lot of people.
And I think that's a good call out of like just the examples of what they do, because I totally thought prettier was a linter as well. And Ben just joined. So hi, Ben. What do you think? We're talking about that. I was like, okay, so a linter. Oh, my light just fell. That's cool. It can stay there. We're going for a new motif. We're doing it, is TypeScript a linter? and that's where the entire conversation got started here. So we have prettier is an example of a formatter. ESLint is an example of a linter, which does not actually do formatting such as spacing, but it does, a linter does like capitalization or incorrect. Would you say syntax for that one, or is that syntax prettier?
That would be the language. I will note that ESLint can do formatting, but it can't do it well. And every linter maintenance team that I've ever seen, including the ESLint JavaScript team and the TypeScript ESLint team that I'm on, strongly recommends don't use a linter for formatting. Another rule example would be like in TypeScript ESLint, we have rules that verify you're using the right TypeScript or JavaScript syntax for things. So like we can tell you, don't use this specific type of loop over an array because that's unsafe. Use this other type of loop and it will, prevent some bugs. But then the third tier then is, yes, the language. The language makes sure that things are correct in both syntax and, in TypeScript's case, typings. So like if you say a variable is a string and then give it a number, the syntax might be correct, but TypeScript will yell at you saying, no, you said it's a string, don't give it a number.
Okay, that's a great example of how TypeScript does it compared to, I honestly thought that like Prettier or ESLint actually did that, not that it was TypeScript that did that to tell it that it's a wrong variable. Is that how I would say it?
Ooh. Depends how technically precise you want to get. Someone who worked on the language could probably give you a better answer than me on the very specifics of it. But yeah, that's what I would say.
I would say, okay, this does bring to my all my questions for chapter 2. And y'all, I'm going to show this really quick. We're going to see if we can show this of how I end up studying before we do this, and where Josh ends up coming in is, okay, let me add to stream. Oh, okay. You're not going to be able to read my handwriting because I think it puts it backwards and upside down. Let's try. Yeah. There we go. But I actually take notes in the book, and I use a screen reader to read the book to me because I'm dyslexic, but this helps me remember what parts I was getting stuck at. And that's currently what we're going to be working on today. So if anybody wants to see the notes I'm taking, happy to do photos or show you again, but that's really, really awkward. So it is not going to be permanent. And let's see. We got a comment on, let's see, Cancer IMAX? Cancer IMAX? Is that anywhere close to right on your name? Would it be fair to say that a linter gives you a list of things to fix, but a formatter will actually fix them?
It's a good question. I'll verbally say what I said in the chat. A formatter will basically always fix it for you and do it very quickly and in a standardized way. A linter allows a list of rules to run. Each rule may produce complaints, and each of those complaints may have a fix available. Like in ESLint, there's a really popular plugin, ESLint plugin Simple Import Sort, that I like, that sorts your imports. It has an auto fixer that can sort your imports for you. But other things like, hey, you used a function in a place that you should have just made it a class, or vice versa. Like that might be more complex, and the rule might not be able to quickly or easily suggest a fix for it.
Very cool. Thank you. And something else that I do want to shout out that I actually didn't scroll to the beginning of chapter 2 is I will also bring this up on screen so you guys, so everyone can see at least what area we're in on the chapter. So, I'm getting there. Share this screen. We are on chapter 2, the type system. And I would say question number 1, tell me what your, why this chapter, what was your intent to this chapter and why you created it, please.
Sure. You're very polite. I appreciate you. I will also note that I'm in my brother's house, hence my potato quality camera, and he has two small children, so I am eating granola bites, and will soon, all while muted, be enjoying a little bit of unsweetened apple puree. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, as another side note, it is on your Twitter, so hopefully I'm not crossing the line saying this. If anybody notices that
Oh yeah.
Josh may look up and there's like a really red eyeball, he's okay. Please explain.
Yeah, sorry. You thank you for bringing this up. I was going to and I forgot. Content warning, not very much. I had LASIK, which is like a now rather standard eye surgery that makes it so you don't need glasses or contacts anymore for the most part. Apparently, until you're in your 40s, I need reading glasses like everyone else. So I have that to look forward to. But the side effect of LASIK, it's pain-free, totally fine. It's just your eyes get red, especially if you have like a really strong like flinch/blink instinct like I do. Like if anything goes near my eyes, I'm just all over. So now my eyes look like a vampire or zombie costume, which is great. I have been wearing sunglasses indoors so that people don't look at me and think, oh no, I'm now that guy. So if you ever see someone wearing sunglasses indoors, they might have just had LASIK 2 days ago. But pain-free, totally fine.
And
check out my Twitter for some cool pics.
we did like double check that Josh is okay to stream today.
Oh yeah, Jen was real nice about this. I was like, no, let's do this. I'm so excited. But yeah.
Okay.
The type system.
Thank you for that caveat. What is the type system? Why did you make this chapter? And tell us a little bit about it, please.
Sure. It all started when I tried to learn TypeScript. And I think a lot of explanations of TypeScript either assume people already understand what a type system is from another language like C# or C++, or they kind of gloss over the concept of a type system and then jump into more syntax things. But I don't like that because I think if you're going to understand how TypeScript works, you should really understand how TypeScript works. Like what is it looking for in your code and why does it give the errors that it gives? So in this chapter, I cover the foundation of the logic that TypeScript uses to look at your code, understand the code, and then maybe yell at you about the code. And the type system refers to the understanding that TypeScript builds up of all the things that exist, variables, functions, etc., and the types that they might be, like string, number, etc. Does that sound good so far?
Yeah, I don't know why it just decided that it was going to show it on the other screen, but yes, please can. Something that I didn't realize, and this is a great reminder as well for everyone. So I am still learning JavaScript. I'm still learning programming languages. I have built my own site. I can figure out a lot of it, but things like what we'll go through later on is like, what do you use null or undefined for? Questions for another time. That being said, if some of the questions I ask seem like they're not TypeScript related, they're JavaScript related, that is why. And also, I had no idea that TypeScript, like type systems, happened outside of JavaScript. I didn't know that C++ or C# both used it as well.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that. Like, oh really?
There are
Okay.
3 main popular languages out of quite a few, but 3 main popular ones people use that for the longest time did not have any concept of types or type system built in. JavaScript, Python, Ruby. I guess PHP is there, but it had some like really small ones many years ago. There are also other languages, but those are the 3 main ones. And all 3 of these main languages, in terms of like how many people use in the industry, now have very popular type systems available for them because they're so gosh darn useful. But almost every other language out there, C, C++, Rust, Go, Java, all these really popular languages have type systems. And one of the big flaws in JavaScript that gets mentioned in chapter 1 of the book is that because it doesn't have a definitive way to describe what stuff is supposed to be, when you have like hundreds or even thousands of files, it can get really difficult to manage your code. So the type system is something that lets you manage your code because you have good ways to describe what stuff is supposed to be.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Can I just say your mic is really good because it literally heard the bag. And I'm kind of impressed. I'm impressed with the mic though. We have another question. Sometimes TypeScript can infer what you mean, and other times you have strictly to type. I'm not sure I understand that yet. Does that make sense to you, Josh?
It does. The way tech Twitter works is someone will make a joke about something, someone else will notice the nugget of truth or lie in the joke, normally truth, and then make an insightful comment about it. And then people will repeat this over and over, joke, comment, until it's a full-blown meme for the duration of 1 week. We are currently in that cycle, about, I think, 2 days in, maybe 3 at most, of people debating about the right way to indicate types of the TypeScript type system. We'll learn in this chapter that in many cases, TypeScript can just read your code and understand what's supposed to happen. But in some cases, you need to or can opt into being more explicit. And tech Twitter is all ablaze about it. People are poop posting everywhere. It's this whole thing. It'll die down in a week. I actually recorded a video for it. I've never waded into these stupid discussions before. Apologies. It's not a stupid discussion. The topic is very smart. The way people are discussing it is stupid. This particular question I quite like, and I really appreciate you asking. Thank you. Thank you, Cancer.
Yay. Okay,
yay.
Cool.
But yeah, we'll
Awesome.
see later in the chapter like more nuance around it.
And I am posting also really quick for those who want to stay along, even if you can't join on the Fridays that we stream. I just linked the repo, and that will keep track of all of our streams, all the dates, as well as any projects when I get to them. When I get to them, they'll be in there. Okay, so we talked a bit about like what your plan for this, what is the types, a bit about what a type system is, or how it might be used. But it's something that you said like right here, and I'm just like, I thought this was interesting in the fact of a type is a description of what JavaScript value shape might be. By shape, I mean which properties and methods exist on a value, and built-in type of operator would describe it. And I thought that was a good way of like visualizing it. And also to anyone that is like, doesn't like learning from books, I am one of those people. Josh is a really good writer and actually made it funny, which I appreciated. So
Thank you.
As someone that likes to just wing it and figure things out, I found that this one is actually worth reading. So I'm having fun finding more and more books like that. So in this example, you said when you create a variable with an initial value Aretha, let singer equal Aretha. You also go in, and I know I'm going to be skipping around a little bit of that let a first name be Whitney. And those, I'm just going to pause on it, confused me a little bit, but I think it might have to do with, I wonder if I can get, I can. Okay. Like the 7 basic kind of primitives in JavaScript, and then which ones TypeScript understands. I get boolean, string, number, and I feel like null, undefined, bigint, and symbol are things that I haven't really run into very much or aren't connecting the dots. Could you help explain those a little bit or examples?
Sure. Yeah, I will say that the only one that actually matters in the vast majority, 99.99% of JavaScript code, is the difference between null and undefined. Bigint and symbol are things you will almost never use. I can't remember the last time I've used symbol. I don't think I've ever actually used bigint. I wrote a game engine before that was available. So bigint is like number, but it doesn't round. So it's really good for math. It like goes.
Oh. Okay.
So it's actually an integer, not like a floating point number, like 1.2.
Okay. Because y'all, on opposite Fridays, I'm also learning Python from the bare basics as well. And we just went over that. Now I'm spacing what it's called, but there's a different number instead of, I think it's actually called int. if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Python has what? Int, double floats, few
Yeah,
variants
yeah.
like that.
So there is a variant of what is a basically like a whole number, and then what can be like fractions. So interesting. Okay, so that's a connection for me.
Cool. Symbol we can just
And
ignore. It doesn't matter.
I like
It's not
that.
relevant in this book. We don't even need to have gone over Bigot. I just think they're cool. And yeah, Ben, I feel like they're good for like adding the code type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are projects that use them. Like there's a reason why the JavaScript people work on them, but we won't get into that in the book. But
Now,
the really
now I feel like I kind of want to like tweet that. I've been like, who's actually used these things?
yeah.
I'll ask
Every
someday.
language has the concept of something like null or nil. What does Python call it? Is it? I always forget. Nil, null.
I don't know if I'm that far in Python,
Okay.
so I'll keep you posted.
None. They call it none with a capital N. Thanks, Python. The only one. So you have a variable and you don't assign it an initial value. Let's say you just write the code like let singer semicolon no equals Aretha or Whitney or anything. What is stored in that variable before you give it a value? The answer is undefined. So in JavaScript, the default, there's nothing here, is called undefined. JavaScript also has another thing that is basically the same idea, there's nothing here, called null. And it is incredibly annoying to me and many people that JavaScript has two ways to describe there's nothing here. And people get into these heated debates about when you should use one or the other. Undefined, to many, is when there's nothing there and no value. Null is when there is a value and it's nothing. The difference between those two makes no sense to me and most, but some of us prefer. So one of the big, I'd say, language mistakes in JavaScript is having two things that mean almost the same thing.
And to just say that back to you, even though they're both confusing, it's like this example of let singer equal Aretha, and if Aretha was missing, it would come up as undefined.
Yes. There are a lot of old browser APIs that return null, not undefined, when there are no results for something. For example, document.query selector searches the browser document or the page for something matching a query. And if no DOM elements are found, it returns null, not undefined. That's just the way we live our lives. Preach.
And what up, Rivet? Haven't seen you for a while. Oh, I should talk about this. Y'all, for anybody that's in Denver, Genghis Khan is at the end of the month, and there it's a tabletop conference. I always forget that Comic-Con is probably like a comic conference. But I'm very excited and I'm going. And yeah, it's gonna be really awesome. The TTRPG convention. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Cool.
It's gonna be
Is
dope.
it bad that I really despise playing most board games? I had a friend group that kept playing them over and over, and I hope one of them is listening so they feel shame about this. And it really ruined it for me. So now I have like once a month tolerance for it. Unless it's Catan. I can tolerate Catan.
I don't think I've ever played. Oh, I was in a Twitter space where they were talking about it. The D&D crew was talking about it. I've heard really boring things. Like not a lot of people really like Catan.
It's objectively not the best of them. Like it's older, it's classic, it's good, but like we've had innovations and more exciting things. Like people play Catan for hours and it doesn't have hours of content in it. But I also used to play Magic the Gathering and I still really like that game. So
okay, I play D&D, so but we do it online. So I mean it's still a tabletop game, but yeah. We just do it virtually. And I definitely there's more games that I want to look into. I feel like Rivet Hearts MTG.
Magic the Gathering. Heck yes.
Yeah. I used to play, but everybody let me borrow their decks to play to like help them compete against themselves. So I'd have really good decks, but that was many moons ago. All right.
TypeScript.
TypeScript. This is that was really helpful. So thank you. This was definitely something that also I think really helps to know, is this something that I need to go down a rabbit hole to research more? Like knowing me, I would have been like, oh, I need to go like figure out what a symbol is for, why I would use a symbol, that kind of thing. And it may not be something that's actually useful. And okay, scrolling. And y'all, you can buy this book online if we're going too fast. This is just kind of review, give you some ideas of what each chapter is, and answer any questions that we have. And y'all are welcome to continue asking questions. So I'm really happy that Cancer has been. So thank you. All right, the next questions. Okay, so this one is kind of goes with the Aretha part that I had in here of the error is TypeScript. Take the following snippet in which TypeScript is emitting a type error about a member property being erroneously
incorrectly
erroneously called as a function. Erroneously. I have, and for all that may not know, I am very, very, very dyslexic. And part of a lot of dyslexia for people is not knowing like how to break down words to sound them out. It's very frustrating. So streaming and reading out loud is like really fun and not fun. Fun. All right. So let first name equal Whitney. I know I'm not using all of the symbols and things. First name dot length with the brackets. And this expression is not callable. Type number has no call signatures. So all of these answers totally made sense. What I was a bit confused on is, would it be like first name with the brackets and quotes to be proper?
I'm going to nitpick you, and I apologize in advance. It's going to help me. You're saying brackets. I would call it parentheses.
Parentheses. Okay.
As we get into arrays, where we have both brackets and parentheses on the line, it helps me having the right like internal monologue for things. I don't know about you, but I'm one of the people that has a very omnipresent internal monologue, and that's how I think.
Yeah, no, I love that, because we all learn so differently that it's very, very helpful to have these conversations. And thank you for the follow. I don't know how to say your name, but I'll show it on here. Agribinia? Thank you. All right.
There's a very mild typo I'm just noticing now. The book's not wrong.
Oh.
I'm just, there should be a period on that second line of the comment. Type number has no call signatures. The first line has a period. The second line doesn't. These are the things you notice when you write a book. Wait a few months and then come back to it. Anyway, so the problem is in JavaScript, if you want to get the length of a string, it's just the thing dot length. It's not a function.
Right, okay.
It's a member property, a field.
Okay.
So adding in the parentheses is wrong. And TypeScript, one of the flaws of TypeScript, like the big things they've been trying to work on the last few years, is that a lot of its error messages are like too technical. They are accurate and precise, but not super clear. And what it's saying here is type number has no call signatures, meaning I, TypeScript, have not been told that there's any allowed way to call length, which those things are called signatures, a call signature. Because there's no call signature, I don't think this can be called as a function, i.e. it is not callable. And those four steps are how we got to that conclusion.
Okay, thank you. And I'm hoping this makes it a little easier, something I probably should have started doing earlier, so you can see where we are on the screen. And hide this. Cool. There we go. Okay, that part makes sense. And I'm going kinds of errors, and I think you just went through it of syntax. Ooh, this is fun. It just will auto do it. Syntax and type, Like that made sense of like syntax errors are like if they're missing the quotes, and a type error is if it's not the correct type. Like in my mind, it made sense. This one didn't necessarily make sense to me, but we did skip that exercise and go, never mind.
Sure.
Because it had classes and me and classes don't get along yet. Of this one is for type errors, it would be like if I try to use a number instead of a string, right?
Yeah, that type of thing.
Okay.
A
Okay.
syntax error is something that stops the runtime from being able to execute your code in the first place. Like if you have
Okay.
let, it's something like that. A type error
Okay.
is your code is syntactically valid, but TypeScript is pretty sure you screwed up.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Now, what, and y'all, I just ended up like in the last couple of weeks, I was like, I need a job. I need a portfolio. So I started building a site with Astro, and they are a meta framework, a JavaScript meta framework, and it uses TypeScript and Tailwind CSS. So I kind of ended started up using TypeScript. So we'll be going into that as we go. I mentioned that because I realize the assignability, and I think I tried assigning stuff in my website, which is exciting. So assignability. This made sense of let first name equal Carol, first name equal Joan. Of it followed along because they are the same type. Not and like it doesn't need to be the same string, but they are the string. Like they don't have to both say Carol. They can, and that it follows along, meaning that okay, cool. If we do let first name be Carol, that's a string. First name equal Joan, that's a string. Let last name be King, that's a string. Last name equal True, no.
Not allowed. Because everything
So
was a string until you added a Boolean in there, and TypeScript does not like mismatches.
yeah. So all of that made sense, and like why types are, you can change types around and that type of thing. So all this made sense, and this is a big place where type annotations and like not needing to have like doing too much on I'm just making sure I didn't actually write a note for this, but I'm like, I feel like this is something I was supposed to write a note for. Because this is to say, here assigning, I'm highlighting what I'm reading. Here assigning the evolving any variable rocker is first assigned as a string, which means it has a string methods such as to uppercase, but then evolve to a number. Oh, could you explain this area and what's going on a bit more, please?
Sure. We declare this variable rocker, rock on. Fun fact: this is the sign. The rock on sign is the sign of the horns, like the devil horns. That's where that comes from.
Oh,
Cool piece of trivia. So we declare this variable rocker, and TypeScript doesn't know what's supposed to go in it. We haven't indicated to TypeScript what it's supposed to contain. So to start, TypeScript considers it to be type any, which is a type that'll keep coming up, and I'll get more and more angry towards as the book goes on. Any says, I don't know, just let me do whatever I want. Anything.
okay.
When we, on the next line of code, assign a string to rocker, TypeScript knows, okay, they have assigned a string. Rocker is now type string. So you can call methods like to uppercase that exist on string.
Okay.
But a variable that is what's called an evolving any, meaning it wasn't given an initial value or type, so it's just been assumed to be the type it was given, is allowed to be a new type or given a new type of value. So rocker equals a number is totally fine. And at that point, TypeScript evolves its understanding. It switches it from string to number because it sees we never said what it's supposed to be, and now we've switched it from string to number. Does that answer what you're looking for?
Yes, and to compare, let's see if I can actually make this smaller. This might be hard for everyone to see, so we're just gonna, do it this way. So the reason this one didn't end up being any and it has to stay a string is because it's let first name equal something, and that's why it's
Yes.
associating with it. So it can't be changed. But if it was let first name, would you put equal any or just let first name?
You're skipping ahead. You are asking how to give a particular type to a variable. And if you don't have an initial value, there is a syntax that you can use to tell TypeScript what is supposed to go in the variable. And that syntax is called type annotations and comes up in the
Okay.
next page.
Okay. And that's where we got here. There we go. Of let rocker. And let rocker doesn't have, it is not assigning to anything. So therefore, instead of saying the equals, whatever it equals, and for that example, so we technically don't need to put that it equals a string. We could tell it that it equals a word and therefore it knows it's a string.
Yes. Yeah.
So like
Um,
this one says let first name equal Carol. It doesn't need to be let first name equal string
that's correct.
because
The way that
Carol's a
you tell
string.
TypeScript, the way that you tell TypeScript the type of something isn't with an equals, it's with a colon if you don't have a value. So you can either say let first name equals Carol or let first name colon string. And both of those things would tell TypeScript that first name is supposed to be a string.
And I'm going to bring this up for rivets, but I'm writing that down really quick.
Yes, I would say that evolving any variables are generally bad-ish. I don't think we actually have a lint rule against them in TypeScript BSLint. I personally try to avoid them. I honestly just try to make variables consts whenever possible. Even if I'm not in a project that uses the const syntax over let, I generally try not to mutate variables over time because it then gets hard to keep track of them. So most of the time I end up not having evolving any's. I'm hesitant to say no, it's bad or yes, it's good or whatever because it's not something that people end up doing a lot, so we don't have too many hard feelings on it. But eventually there will probably be some week-long Twitter flame war about it, and then we'll see who really cares.
Okay, to see if I recap that to understand, even though there's technically that's technically possible, is it considered bad to change types on a variable? Is what Rivet asked, and what you're saying is even though we can, we don't necessarily always want to use it as a moving variable. We want to have it as like we're going to define it, such as let first name equal Carol, just so that way it's defined as a string and we don't have to worry about it moving or changing.
Yeah, just keep your code simpler, easier to understand.
Okay.
It's hard
Okay.
enough to understand code as it is. Let's not make it harder for our developers.
Yes. And Ben just said, so tired of the flame wars.
Yeah.
I mean, lucky enough for being a beginner is, I am still learning it all. So I don't get them when they're there. Some of them I'm starting to get, which is kind of exciting. Okay. So this is, let me scroll down here so that way y'all can see where I'm going. All right, so we have let rocker colon string, and we're still talking about the type annotations. And this is where, and then the unnecessary annotations, which I think is very interesting. And this also helps. This is where I was, this connected what I was asking about at the beginning with Aretha. I'm like, you answered it throughout the chapter. That was kind of fun. Yet, what I'm wondering and would love to kind of show you what I was doing with my site. So give me a second because I'm not used to how to do this with so many screens. Okay. No. Meh? No. We're just going to do this. Okay. Come on. There we
Oh, I
go.
use a rectangle for that. Are you
I
using
I am
rectangle? Do I
using
spy?
yeah. I'm just not used to it yet.
Takes a little while,
And
yeah.
so I got Rectangle, which y'all, it's a really great app. You should definitely check it out. But then I also got Arc, the new browser. So between the two, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. It's very awkward. But before we go into what my questions are going to be, Cancer asked, when building a function for the first time and it takes some parameters, do you start with type any and work backward towards stricter typing?
Um, I'll answer it in the general of when I write code in general, such as functions or variables, um, such as parameters, functions, variables. Do I start with type any and work backwards? If I need to. Generally, when I write code, I try to first think in my head what type is stuff going to be. There is eventually going to be a term someone comes up with, like type-driven development, that doesn't have the same acronym as test-driven development. But I try to think in terms of like what are my values, what types can they be, and then how do I represent that in the type system. So if I know the type of something, I will write it. Even if it's slightly wrong, I'll write it, get the code to have correct syntax, and then fix the type errors. But if I don't know the type, yeah, totally reasonable to write any. Like you can say colon space any as the type for something rather than colon string or colon number. And if you don't know the type yet, it is better to say any and just know that as a to do for yourself later than to freeze and not write your code at all. So totally fine to use any during development. I just would not recommend allowing them to persist in your code base.
I was listening and then forgot what I was going to write down. What did you say was parameters again? Like I think you said like um,
Oh,
string or
just
something.
um, this question is specific to function parameters, but my
Hmm.
answer is the same for function parameters, variables, anything that might need a type annotation.
Okay.
Fun fact: arguments are what you give to a function. You give a function an argument. Parameters is when the function declares what it takes in. They're not the same term. And
This
no
is
one ever
why
remembers
it's
that.
this is why coding is so confusing. But at the same time, it's like when you finally start getting it, starts to make sense. It just takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we are looking for, yay,
Hey,
yay, thanks to Josh.
my pleasure.
Uh,
Answer. It brings me joy every time.
so I built a site and I got a theme to start it off from Astro, which is a meta framework. And what I was doing is, so I will go a little backwards, is they have all of these components. And I was like, I really, really like this code component, but it doesn't have anything in here that I can change and, manipulate what's showing up on the screen. And I was like, okay. So I had to go find where this was. And this is when I started figuring out the imports. And I was like, okay, so we go to data, we go to code, and then we have our code.json, and they're in a very specific format. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll just keep doing this, whatever. And it has this index file. And I'm like, okay, so I figured out enough that it's the importing the code site and from types, and that there's sites data from code.json and it exports as get code. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I understand this enough, but this does not help me put the dates. I really wanted my stream schedule to have the dates and to give y'all, a visual, because that's always helpful for me. Of please load. There we go. If I go to portfolio code, this is what it looks like. It looks beautiful. I really wanted it everywhere. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna make more of these. And we have writing, we have speaking, all look great. These were very easy to duplicate. They all do the same thing. They're all the same sizes. Awesome.
Very nice.
But
It looks great.
thanks. But for my live stream, I want dates. I really want dates. They need dates. And it didn't let me do dates. I was very, very agitated. In case anybody wants to know how I code, a lot of it is me yelling at my laptop. This is why I'm like, I don't know if I can actually do live coding instead of just learning, because I just yell at my laptop. And so what ended up happening is I was like, oh, there is a type. I'm going to go investigate. And this is what goes through my head. And I'm like, oh, look at all of these types. They do things, and they do things. So I actually created a thing of export interface stream site, and I added date. I got it to work. It clearly works. I'm very excited about this. I'm like so excited that I figured out how to make it work. But I don't actually know what I did, in the fact that we end up going through. I'm going to see if I can make both of these big enough to ask my next question, which, let's see if this works now. Ayo. And no. Do we want to do this? No. Oh, it's because, whoa. I don't know how I did that, but that is really cool. Okay, it's gone.
I would like to know what shortcut you just pressed, because it looks really useful. Is that an on-screen magnifier accessibility thing?
Yeah, but I think it was from view. I don't know.
Later. Yeah.
Oh, show magnifier. It is the thing next to the one.
Tilde? Is that tilde?
Yeah,
I actually never know if I'm right about that.
I think it's called tilde. You are right.
Cool.
I think. I don't know. That's what people have told me. Oh, this is fun. I feel like okay.
Very nice.
So my question is, so we got type shapes coming up, but we also have modules. And I know you said like there's some that aren't that important in here, and I'm really glad that we're talking about this, but I'm like, so there's type shapes, there's modules. I also have in here components, and I did something here with my TypeScript JSON index file into my component to make it work. And I don't actually know what all these separately mean, or if they're connected.
It's funny because chapter 7 is what covers interfaces, and I believe we're on chapter 2 today. So
yes,
great. Jumping ahead. I will also note that the difference between a script and a module in JavaScript is not useful in most of the book. Like, it's not something that comes up more than once or twice. I forget whether I mentioned in the book that this is like not something that you need to pay a lot of attention to, but it's like just barely useful enough that we have to include it. So yeah, a module is a file that imports or exports, I believe. I think that's a technical definition. So if there's like an import statement or an export statement, it's a module.
Oh, so would that mean that let me go back up here to index, it imports and it exports.
Yep. So it's definitely a module.
Yes. Okay. And Rivet calls the tilde an eyebrow, or the eyebrow. And Ben said that the magnifying class is especially nifty for streams. I agree, y'all. I just don't know which way we're going on this. But it only works in PDF, I'm pretty sure. Let's magnifier. Yeah, it doesn't go all the way over to my. So it's just for this. But that's still pretty cool. Okay. So the index file is like a module because it has an import and export.
Sure. And all you need is one of them to qualify as a module.
Oh. Okay.
So any file that has an import and or an export is considered a module.
Oh, nifty. Okay. Cool. And then
you also asked about components, which is like a totally separate concept. A component is an idea in a lot of UI frameworks. where it is a single area of your view that takes in some information and renders UI output. So like your header would be a component.
Right. Like I'm understanding what you're saying, but I'm like, I don't know how to write that for notes.
Sure. I really like the way that React does its description of components. I realize that this is like the fifth flame war I might be entering here. But in React, a lot of components, the most common way to describe them now is with a function. It takes in some information and literally returns a description of the HTML that is output. Now, that there are like, that's technically inaccurate in some cases. There's like React for native and blah, blah, blah. But like in reality, it's like you take in some information and you return the DOM or the description of the DOM that is a result. So that is like a really common way to think of and describe a component.
Okay, cool. I like that. And then we also talked a bit about, where did I get this? Oh, hold on. I have a reason to use a magnifying glass. Now let me, I guess I should just like actually use the tilde. Okay. So a module is a file with the top level export import. That makes sense. And a script is every file that's not a module.
Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't have an import or an export, it's a script. That's all the other files.
So this .json is technically a script because it doesn't say that it's importing or exporting anywhere.
It's neither. I guess modules
because
and
it's a database.
Modules. Ooh, I don't know if I actually say this in the book. This is only modules and scripts is only referring to code files like JS, TS, like JavaScript code files. So code.json is just like some file on your system that is not part of the JavaScript understanding. Now, they're adding in ways to the language to like really nicely interact with data files like JSON. But like this is not JavaScript code. This is data or database, like you said.
Okay. I'm trying to think. So I probably don't have anything that doesn't import.
Yeah, most code bases, basically every file is a module. Scripts are really mostly from older code bases. Mostly, not completely. Not JavaScript.
It's marked
That's just
down.
some random file on your system that someone else might interact with.
So it's only for JavaScript, you said, right?
Yeah, JavaScript and languages like TypeScript that poop out JavaScript.
Interesting. Okay. So that's all making sense. And
cool.
I think that was actually the bit that wasn't the end of the parts that weren't making sense. Although I do think if you could, is there something, and I have a feeling it might be more about like type shapes or the annotations or like unnecessary annotations. Like you answered all of my questions. Thank you. Are there parts that you think that a lot of people may miss or you really want to drive home that we should talk about?
Yes. Cancer at 12:18 my time messaged something that I like 1/3 answered, and then we kind of like said we'll get to later. Sometimes type I don't have the ability to focus on the thing, but sometimes TypeScript can infer what you mean, and other times you have to strictly type. Can you talk about that if it's not outside what you're already talking about? That's very much
okay. So, cool. Do you want me to show something in the book?
Yes, please. We're working well. We're like on the same wavelength. I was about to ask.
Yay.
There's the section on unnecessary type annotations, I think a little earlier.
Right here.
Yeah. So this is a good example of we are telling TypeScript something that it already can figure out on its own. It's like me telling you, okay, I'm going to tell you a string. The value is Tina. Like you know it's a string. So there's no need to tell TypeScript this.
Mm.
There are cases where it's useful to use explicit type annotations, such as variables that don't have an initial value. And as you go through the book, we'll see some places where it is anywhere from somewhat useful to tell TypeScript a type, arguably debatably, to totally
Mhm.
necessary, you should really do it. In general, the rule of thumb is use explicit type information or annotations, like explicitly type the stuff out, as little as possible.
Give me just a second.
Sure.
I will be right back.
I'll do crowd work. So what's the deal with bees? Anyone up to anything fun this weekend? If you hear a child yelling, it is my niece Liel. She is very serious. I'd like to take this moment to give a shout out to maybe looking at homes. It's going to say Mastodon. Ooh, what are you looking for? I am like a year and a half. Board game night. Ben, you're killing me. We covered this. No, that sounds lovely. Thank you, Cancer. I'm glad it was worthwhile for you. Yay. I've been trying to get my wife into Magic the Gathering. It's been really slow. She already plays D&D, so it's not like a I don't like nerds thing. It's just like this specific game takes a while for her to get into. She doesn't like math, like the small numbers. Good. No friendships ruined. That game is a reputation. What are you gonna play instead? Oh, hi.
Hi, I just want to say sorry, everyone. So my grams went into surgery this morning, and my mom was like, "Okay, I'll text you when it's she's done, just to let you know everything's okay." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then it comes up that my mom's calling me. I'm like, "Oh my god, what happened?" My mom's like, "I forgot I said I would text you."
Great.
So everything's good, y'all. We're good, but apologies for the interruption. Good news, my grams is okay, and I'm happy to see that you guys are going back to the D&D Magic and Canton conversation. It's always a fun one. We're my audio broke before I even heard you finishing this. Did you have anything else to add about the sometimes TypeScript can infer?
Yeah, final. I get that annoying Bluetooth thing where if like a call comes in, everything stops. It's annoying. But yeah, final conclusion. In general, use as little explicit stuff as possible. Get away with it as much as you can, letting TypeScript infer everything, because TypeScript is normally at least as smart and often smarter than you. Then there are cases where if you use what seems like a reasonable explicit type annotation, you will just be reducing TypeScript's understanding. You'll be telling it something more general and less specific than what it would have thought. But know the cases when it is useful to tell TypeScript something explicitly, because sometimes it is better. And we will see a few cases, 1 or 2 per chapter, maybe, as we go through the book. Right now, the tech Twitter flame war thing is on function return types. Like when you have a function, should you explicitly tell TypeScript the type of what it returns? And the answer, not my answer, the correct answer, he says, knowing he's going to get yelled at, is only when it benefits you.
Okay. I like it. And I also something that I realized that we might have glossed over a little bit that may be worth I'm going to ask you to do the recap of it of type shapes, because we didn't actually spend time on it. And I think that's actually the only part of the chapter that I was like, oh, this actually kind of makes sense. But I would like you to explain it so I could see if it actually made sense.
Yeah, TypeScript knows not just whether you are a primitive type. By the way, the word primitive is very important because later on we'll see things that are different. A primitive type is like string, number, and so on. TypeScript also understands object shapes. And if you have an object, TypeScript will make sure you're not accessing members or properties of it that don't exist. The example in this code, the second one, let share equals first name, last name, If you try to say share.middlename, TypeScript will yell at you because it knows you declared an object that only has first name and last name, not middle name. So similar to how TypeScript can do assignability checks like Boolean versus number, it also does property existence checks. Does middle name exist on share? Is that what you were looking for?
Hold on.
Are you now looking for a file where you can like try to find an object and do object.asdf to see if it triggers anything?
No, it's what you're saying makes sense more of these are things that I don't necessarily know exist or why they exist. I just know how to make it like do what I needed to do because I messed around with it enough. But since these are all, you have like first, like just these brackets that were already called for, this is why dates weren't working because it was outside of the shape. You are putting words to what I learned so I can actually talk about it and know how to Google it.
Yay.
Because
That's
I didn't know these were called shapes. Like
cool.
nothing
I don't know
in
how many
here.
people call them shapes. I think the technical term is typically object types.
Well, the shape would be all three of these together that was written out that I named type stream, right?
Yes.
Or get stream. So I named it down here. Like it says export code site. It had these three. So this is a shape, but my date didn't fit in this shape. So I created a new shape that has all of these types in them.
Yep, all the properties.
Sweet. TypeScript is actually starting to make sense, and we're only on chapter 2. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, you're on chapter 7, but you know.
We're on chapter 2. This is something that I've definitely learned for myself in my own learning style is if I have to just stick with the bare basics, it doesn't make sense yet. Because unless I can see how it fits into the big picture for myself, I'm just like, okay, cool. This doesn't make any sense yet. Where bouncing back and forth, where like if I were to read all of chapter 7, probably won't make sense because I don't understand chapter 1 through 6. But this one part, it really does help with putting 2 and 2 together. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrap up today? Let me go down to the summary. I think that would also help to see if anybody else has any questions. I don't think the magnifying glass is big enough. Oh.
Ooh, it's adaptive. Very nice.
There we go. That is the summary for today. If anybody has questions or something you want us to go into more detail, I know we talked previously about like doing the projects online once my mouse is done being over here. I will link them because I feel like it's going to be more important to go through the chapter and ask questions. Like next week, after I do the homework, if I have questions, I'll ask questions, but not necessarily that something that we need to do on stream. But if y'all have questions, I would really like to make sure that we get those answered because I know having access to a human to answer questions is so valuable.
Yeah. No, I mean, this all sounds good to me. I got nothing else. I'm just reading through the book on the side to make sure I haven't missed anything, but sounds good.
Great. Awesome. Then let me go back to our normal screen. And I also want to make sure that we reshare the GitHub repo because it has all of the links. So that way you can know where to look at all of the book, where to get the book, the chapter projects, chapter summaries. It is all in one area. And also, if you did not catch chapter 1, that will also be in there. And there we go. And just want to say shout out to everybody who joined today. And thank you so much for, asking questions, because these are questions I may not know to ask either, because I am coming from more of a beginner point of view. And TypeScript, I've found, is hard for a lot of people, no matter where they are in their coding journey. It's been very.
I think it's good to have people learning in public like the way you're doing. I think it really helps. It helps show off the learning, and it also just helps show off different ways of learning, which I think is really crucial.
And
so thank you for doing this.
Thank you. So next week is going to be regular scheduling of Monday is Miss Monday with Laura, where we literally just hang out and talk about random tech things or life or just so many random things. And then Tuesday is going to be probably whatever I'm working on, or no stream, because that's what I like to do on Tuesdays. Wednesdays is the mental health and neurodiversity Twitter space. And Thursday is open source with Distribute Aid. And last but not least, next Friday is Python, because we do it every other Friday of learning a language, TypeScript and Python. And this is something that I am very, very proud of putting on the site, that I got it figured out. The entire reason I started looking more into the TypeScript stuff. If you would like to know the stream schedule. Oh, yeah. Ben's going to think about getting into streaming on Tuesday. That's what everybody should be doing on Tuesday.
Do it.
If you're not doing it yet, that's what you should do on Tuesday. And yes, please. Yes. All the questions. I think this is, Ben, we've talked about questions I've already had for you too. I have so many questions already. All right, I will be writing a list. And also, if you want to stay up to date with this stream schedule, there is that. I'm like reading it and I'm like, yes. All right, y'all, you are about to get rated, because that's always important. And Rizelle is currently streaming from GitHub, and that's amazing. So she is doing open source Fridays. That is something she's always done. And this month, I love the fact that she is making sure that it is Black maintainers for Black History Month. So something really dope. Make sure you go support. And what? It says I'm unable to raid. Well, I wanted to raid. Maybe I'm not going to be able to. Rude.
I really like that, though.
I know. I'm also clicking the wrong link as we go over there. I'm hitting the plus sign. Well, I guess I wonder if they have raids off. Okay. Well, we will raid into the Alt F4 string. Pretty cool over there. If you don't like it, go check out GitHub. That's what we'll go with. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Let's see if this raid goes through. It says it's going to go through. So thank you again, and have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. And